Welcome to the Tech Mobility Podcast.
I'm Ken Chester. As usual, we have a full docket waiting, so let's get started. On the docket, Europa Clipper heads for Jupiter. Electrical utilities consider the benefits of vehicle-to-grid, and the business end of extreme weather. To add your voice to the conversation, call or text the Tech Mobility Hotline at 872-222-9793, or you can email the show directly, talk@techmobility.show. Be sure to check us out on social media, our YouTube channel, and both podcasts, the Tech Mobility Podcast and Tech Mobility Topics. From the Tech Mobility News Desk, this here is a little red meat for those of you who are sick and tired of me always talking about EVs. Oh my goodness, Ken, will you ever stop? Is there anything, why do you just love EVs so much? Okay, all right, I heard you. So let's start with this story. Here's a question. See if you can answer it. Name right now the fastest car that was made by an American manufacturer that just set a speed record in Germany. The vehicle and the engine, gasoline, V8, set a record. Fastest car you can own, sells for less than $1 million. Are you ready? The 2025 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1. This just happened. This is according to Automotive News. At a test track in Germany, General Motors President Mark Russe drove a 2025 Corvette ZR1. Get the speed. This is confirmed. 233 miles per hour. And that is a gasoline V8, folks, not an EV. I just want to be clear here. Setting a top speed record unrivaled by any current production car priced under $1 million. That is a Corvette ZR1, 233 miles per hour. And I want you to put a pin in that, because we're going to come back to that in a minute. They did it at the high-speed oval track at ATP Automotive Testing Papenburg and a recent test in Papenburg, Germany. This is the current Corvette mid-engine and a V8 engine. This particular V8 is what, for those of you, for the purists out there that understand what I'm about to explain to you, is what they call a flat plane V8. And the advantages of a flat plane via typical V8 is the fact that it's a smaller block and that the engine can be designed to be more compact and more responsive. It doesn't generate as much horsepower, but it generates a lot more torque, and it's generally more responsive. The ZR1 Coupe, which set the record, had a standard chassis, an aero package with a standard spoiler and short wicker carbon fiber ground effects, Michelin Pilot Sport 4S tires, and aluminum wheels. They did it with a car that was mainly stock. I said mainly. Chevy engineers developed top speed mode exclusively for closed course use, which adjusts chassis control systems for maximum speed. For those of you that care, the ZR1 reached 233 miles an hour with the engine at redline in 6th gear, meaning it was giving everything. And the reason why they have red line is that is really the edge of the parameters in which the engine can operate safely at a high RPM, hence red line. And they did not blow the motor, if you were wondering. During testing in the GM President's record run, an engineer was in the passenger seat analyzing data in real time. And remember I said put a pin in it? This is why. The 233 mile per hour run was not a one-off performance. 5 engineers, and both ZR1 development cars on site exceeded 230 miles an hour across multiple runs. And Chevy's used Papenburg before, since it provides optimal conditions such as temperature and air density for high-speed test. Chevy engineers have previously set top speeds for 6th and 7th generation Corvette ZR1, 6th generation Camaro ZL1 at the same facility. And it goes without saying, but the piece does say it, the ZR1 is the fastest car GM has ever produced. What they didn't say is how much this sucker's gonna cost. We're talking about a 5.5 liter twin turbocharged LT7 double overhead cam, flat plane crank V8 engine. 5.5 is a good size V8. That is a big puppy. In case you were wondering about horsepower, here it is. 1,064 horsepower at 7,000 RPM, which means at redline. And 828 foot-pounds of torque at 6,000 RPM. 828 foot-pounds of torque is stump pulling torque. That is truck torque. That is diesel truck torque. I mean, that's a lot of torque. That's a lot of power. I would love to know what they had to do to the transmission to handle that much horsepower at that speed and at that torque. Because you're not going to do a typical gearbox. Not for all that flowing through it. To get that to the drive wheels, yeah, no. You're going to need something. And this does not talk about that. But if I was going to pursue this story, that would be my next question. I said, okay, talk to me about the transmission, the universal joint, and the drive shaft. What did you do to those performance pieces in order to take all that energy and translate it to the road without grinding itself to powder? It used regular Michelin Sport Pilot tires. Wow. Yeah, these are the tires you could expect to find on a regular performance car. I've seen them. So they did not use a custom tire, which a lot of, when you're doing the high-speed tests like this and evaluation, usually tire companies will develop a special one-off performance tire for the test. That was not the case here. 1,064 horsepower, 828 foot-pounds of torque, 5.5 liter twin turbocharged LT7 double overhead cam flat plane crank V8. Yow. Yow. I would be very, very, very surprised if this vehicle didn't come in between $150,000 and $250,000. And I bet you'd have to take orders. And Chevy threw this in, and I don't even know why it means anything. For some reason, for the 2025 Corvette ZR1, they're bringing back the split rear window of the mid 60s. Don't know why they would do that and why that would be so important and why they felt they needed to mention it. But I wanted to share this with you because I get a lot of grief from a number of you about my coverage of EVs. And I want to let you know, I talk about all things that move. The Corvette ZR1 is no exception. It would still take a lot of guts for the president of GM. Obviously, he must know how to drive because at that speed, you definitely need training. And what they tell you is the faster the car goes, the slower you react in terms of inputs. You don't do anything abrupt at that speed. It's deliberate, it's gradual, and you plan it. Anything else will get you killed. So I did my piece for y'all. Now, for those of us who would wonder, would you buy a Dodge Charger EV? What if it sounded like the gasoline V8? Dodge is assuming or betting that by recreating the artificial noises dialed in for the new EV to sound like the old Charger, the growl and everything, to retain its speedmonger image to convince fans of its Hellcats, Scat Packs, and Demons of yesteryear to give its EVs a shot. They call it the Fascinate chambered exhaust system. And it shuns the near silence of a typical EV to help capture the visceral sounds and feel of its performance-driven persona. I'd need to hear it. For me, it doesn't make any difference. Does it go fast? I don't care if it's loud or quiet. But apparently, they feel it's important that they need to do this. We'll see. Is there life within the frozen ocean on one of Jupiter's moons? NASA seems to think so. You are listening to the Tech Mobility Show.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than AONmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. AONmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the main place to be these days, and we are no exception. I'm Ken Chester, the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Facebook videos. From my latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary of a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Facebook. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. Be sure to subscribe to our Facebook page. Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast to iHeartRadio and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.
There's a new personal car in town. Zephyr Z7 from Lincoln Mercury.
Baby, put fire in your life.
High voltage styling, slant Z roof, wraparound taillights, buckets, rack and pinion steering, and Z7 equals the best mileage rating in its class with a sticker price that will light your fire.
Zephyr, put fire in your life.
Let's explain this. This is the late 1970s. Ford went to a platform that produced the Ford Fairmont, Mercury Zephyr, eventually would produce the Ford Thunderbird through about 1982. What you got was a very boxy rear-wheel drive car, very straightforward, very plain. Ford set records with the thing, but excitement was not. They tried. No, this car, no. Straightforward, it was, yes. And the Fairmont was everything, including a fleet car and a wagon. They tried to upmarket the Zephyr. Yeah, no. They tried to make it fancy, snazzy. It was still a brick. A brick that got 33 miles to the gallon. A brick that would have cost you, in 1978, $4,500 new. Still a brick, though. But the Zephyr Z7, it's a model I didn't even hear of. I've heard of the Zephyr during that time, but the Z7, no, that was a short-lived version of trying to make more money and create some excitement where there wasn't any. And I can tell you, it didn't work. Mercury Zephyr, 1978. Have you driven a Ford lately? In case you might be wondering, NASA is still in the space exploration business. Go figure, right? Earlier this month, the space agency launched the Europa Clipper, the largest robotic probe the agency has ever built to explore Europa, the ice-crusted moon of Jupiter that scientists suspect have a deep subsurface ocean. This is topic A. Let me start at the top with a disclaimer. This probe is not going to see if there's life on Europa. That's not the thing. What they do want to learn, they want to learn more about this particular moon because they think the elements that might support life are there. This subsurface ocean is roughly 10 miles below the ice crust on this planet. They have looked at pictures of Europa before. Voyager 2 going past it took some pictures. The Hubble telescope, deep space, has taken some pictures. This will be the closest opportunity with the highest resolution yet, and it's going to take the probe 5 years, 1.8 billion miles, talk about warranty, to get there. Let me just expand on one thing that I want you to consider. NASA is sending something into space that has to journey over 1 billion miles, almost 2 billion miles, for 5 years. No adjustments, no repairs, no nothing. Expected to get there and function for 4 years after that once it gets there. If you want to know whether or not American engineering is live and well, I would say point to NASA. During the space race of the 1960s, a lot of the benefits that spun out of the space race came into the consumer realm. That companies being encouraged, being financed, being motivated to just go on and press on. Can you imagine the advantages of what they learned? Number one, they've got a solar array that is over 100 feet long when it's unfurled, is what they're talking about, to generate power. This thing has to be self-sufficient because within its own diagnostics, it's not like you can send a technician out to fix it if there's a problem, which is the thing that's always fascinated me about NASA. We are sending craft out into the great beyond, subject to everything and anything. A lot of things they know, some stuff they don't. 5 years. And you're worrying about if your car is going to last 200,000 miles. This is going to last that. And what we have found in the case of NASA probes, usually they've been over-engineered and continue to work beyond the useful life that they anticipated, either beyond battery life, equipment that they thought would last for so long continues to function years after they expected it to stop working. If you wondered whether or not we are still in the game, it's examples like this. It is example like this. This project is going to cost $5 billion, or has cost $5 billion. Has been going on for decades. This is not just something they decided to do in the last 2 years. Honestly, they've been trying to get this together for almost 30 years. They finally got it together. And again, it's designed to see whether or not Europa has the critical features considered necessary for life. They are not expecting life forms, no matter what sci-fi might tell you. The spacecraft will go into orbit around Jupiter on April 11th, 2030. Let me pause right there. They are so precise. You're going to travel 1.8 billion miles over 5 years, and you know the day it's going to show up when so many things can impact it. And some months later, we'll begin 4 years of collecting science data. Bear in mind, it took 5 years to get there. Then they're going to expect it to work 4 more, minimum. The chances are it actually might work even longer than that. And we're talking about getting results that take even in today's high-tech world, 20, 30 minutes to get an answer from something. If you send it out, you got to wait for it. Now, the Europa clipper will not land on the moon, the Europa moon at Jupiter, but instead will go into a highly elliptical orbit of Jupiter that will enable 49 flybys of Europa, coming as close as 16 miles from the surface. The scientific community has been fascinated by Europa for decades. Multiple lines of evidence suggest that there's a deep, salty ocean beneath the surface. And although Europa is icy at the surface, tidal waves created by Jupiter's immense gravity squeeze the moon's icy crust and generates enough heat to keep the subsurface water liquid, scientists suspect. And something else, they already know that this is water. Not all oceans on those planets that are out in our atmosphere are water. In this case, it is. So let me leave you with this. They said that a camera on the Europa Clipper can produce images with 12 times the resolution of what NASA's Galileo spacecraft obtained in the late 1990s. 12 times better. It will be able to see car-sized objects on the surface of Europa. And remember, the closest it's going to get is 16 miles from the surface. And it'll be able to pick out something the size of a car. 12 times the resolution. Wow. Despite all the doomsday talk by EV naysayers, the electrical industry is starting to see the advantages of all those EVs fully charged. This is the Tech Mobility Show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you've missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be. We're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. As more wind and solar power are added to the power grid, mobile batteries in the form of charged EVs sitting in driveways and garages across a utility's operating area makes sense, especially with the rise of bidirectional charging, also known as V2G or vehicle to grid. This is topic B. This conversation comes from an electric industry publication called T&D World. So let me talk at you for a minute. There's a lot of conversation about what the electrical grid can and cannot handle. There's a lot of conversation about, oh my God, all these EVs coming. We don't know how it's going to support the grid. Oh my God, oh my God. A lot of naysayers and doomsayers, and the grid can't handle it. And what are we going to do, and why are we doing this, and why are we submitting the grid to problems that it are on top of problems it already has? Let me point out a couple of things before I even get into this article. Pacific Gas and Electric with BMW did one of the first tests where 100 first-generation BMW electrics, the little BMW i3s, the little boxy electrics that BMW came out with a number of years ago. First generation, and weren't even that sophisticated or advanced. PG&E, together with BMW and the residential owners of those vehicles in the service area of PG&E, used 100 of them to satisfy grid demand when demand was high. Here's what they learned, and this is not recent. This is going back 8 or 9 years. they learned that this additional power could help supplement demand in the grid without having to have an additional power plant in what they call hot standby. They learned that they could pull down power from these vehicles without significantly degrading any of the vehicles, their ability to charge, their ability to drive, their ability for the owner to use them. And in fact, other research shows that with the right algorithms being applied to the battery management systems, this process actually improves the quality, duration, ability to hold a charge and receive a charge of the batteries. That was one. There's been several others where utilities have partnered with automakers and or residents for bidirectional charging. Consider this. Let's take a major metropolitan city 10 years from now. Let's say in that city of maybe 250,000 people, there are 5,000 EVs scattered throughout the operating area. These EVs have the ability not only to receive a charge from the grid, but to deliver power back into the grid, because every fully charged EV is a fully charged energy storage system. Tariffs can be written, pricing could be arranged to encourage owners, and this could even be, and a number of apps do it too, where app-based you build in incentives for them to charge when power demand is low. So that problem is easily resolved. You have them charge overnight, weekends, wherever, when the power demand is not great. When you need power, these vehicles stationary, because on average, the average American vehicle is only driven 5% out of 160 hours, maybe be driven 8 to 10 hours a week, meaning most of the time it's sitting somewhere. So can you imagine all these vehicles with the ability to put that power back into the grid as needed, not degrading any particular one? That is what they're talking about right here. Up till now, the electrical industry kind of poo-pooed the whole thing. But with the increasing numbers of EVs, there's excitement for both EV manufacturers and the grid operators because of the possibilities that vehicle-to-grid represents. If several hundred or thousands of EVs were aggregated together, that's a thing. And it makes it a different ball game, because suddenly this tech is capable of being scaled to megawatt hours of energy usage, and that gets everyone's attention from EV fleet operators, third-party aggregators, and grid operators. It's similar to having a mobile microgrid available throughout the network, since EVs move between different charging points in a typical day. They can be utilized wherever vehicle-to-grid equipped public parking points are located. And these mobile batteries can have a stabilizing effect on the power grid. Let me take this to the next level. Imagine a world where your utility actually will give you incentives for parking your vehicle in a certain part of town on a given day. Let's go back. Let's get real crazy. Let's go forward 15, 20 years, where now it's autonomous. And you can instruct your autonomous EV to go to any part of town and actually get paid for drawing down a little bit of its power into the grid, and actually defer the cost of owning the vehicle in the first place. Honda did that with their City EV a number of years ago, showed how that would work. This is not new. The challenges to make this work for a utility is the fact that EV manufacturers do not have a common language or a common methodology for connecting with the grid. That needs to happen. There needs to be standards. Right now, there are no industry standards for these vehicles, and the operators need to have that, because that is how the electrical industry works. They work off of standards. Everybody has a standard. You know, if it has that standard, it can connect to the grid in a safe way, because there are legitimate risks and concerns about availability, things like that, how it would work. Older EVs are not bidirectional. New EVs, basically those that are coming into market this year, next year, and going forward, will be. And with the opportunities of having millions of them on the road, millions of them available, this is only a matter of time. Let's even take this to the next level. You're a small utility that has bought into vehicle to grid in a vacation town or vacation destination. You've got maybe 100 people who spend the summer there that own EVs. It also happens to coincide with the time when extra power is needed because you've got seasonal residents there. Imagine what they could do without having to invest additional money for seasonal demand. It's a win-win for everybody. The owners of the EVs mitigate their electrical costs. The local smaller utility mitigates its capital expenditures. Everybody wins. Not to mention decentralized power generation, which affects everybody. And I could even go into talking about disaster areas and things like that, where you can send in mobile vehicles, connect to the grid, and offer, oases of power. I mean, the possibilities are endless, but they do need standards. And I think this is the big thing that they're working on right now, developing standards for vehicle to grid applications. Imagine what that will look like, because it will turn the whole model on its ear. I'm excited because this only helps. It doesn't hurt. There's a financial cost to extreme weather that continues long after the event. We discuss. We are the Tech Mobility Show. To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Did you know that Tech Mobility has a YouTube channel? Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Each week, I upload a few short videos of some of the hot topics that I cover during my weekly radio program. I've designed these videos to be informative and entertaining. It's another way to keep up on current mobility and technology news and information. Be sure to watch, like, and subscribe to my channel. That's the Tech Mobility Show on YouTube. Check it out.
Are you tired of juggling multiple apps and platforms for meetings, webinars, and staying connected? Look no further than aonmeetings.com, the all-in-one browser-based platform that does it all. With AON Meetings, you can effortlessly communicate with clients, host virtual meetings and webinars, and stay in touch with family and friends, all in one place and for one price. Here's the best part. You can enjoy a 30-day free trial. It's time to simplify your life and boost your productivity. aonmeetings.com, where innovation meets connection. Get started today and revolutionize the way you communicate.
Social media is the place to be these days, and we're no exception. I'm Ken Chester of the Tech Mobility Show. If you enjoy my program, then you will also enjoy my weekly Instagram videos. From the latest vehicle reviews to timely commentary on a variety of mobility and technology-related topics, these short features are designed to inform and delight you. Be sure to watch, like, and follow us on Instagram. You can find us by typing the Tech Mobility Show in the search bar. Regardless of how you feel about climate change, you cannot deny the dramatic increase in the frequency and the severity of extreme weather events across the United States in recent years. It normally falls on various departments of the federal government to dig deep financially to help long after FEMA is gone. This is Topic C. Consider this. A disaster hits the news, like Helene. Milton is in the midst of the news right now, and our hearts go out and prayers are being offered for those souls who lost a lot, if not everything, the cities and towns that have been horrifically damaged. Lives have been uprooted, some lives lost. We read about it for a while, hear about it for a while, After a few months, a few weeks, we will move on as a country to the next bright, shiny thing. People who have experienced these extreme weather events, however, are impacted for years after they happen. I stumbled across some information from the Federal Highway Administration, part of the Department of Transportation. This is just one part of the federal government. I'm not talking about Commerce, Treasury, the IRS. I'm not talking about Health and Human Services, the USDA, which is a big deal up here, Veteran Services, all of which would be touched directly and indirectly by these disasters at state level. I'm just talking about the impact on the U.S. Department of Transportation. In September, they announced money to repair roads and bridges damaged by natural disasters and extreme weather events of $802 million. Almost $1 billion. Now, before you say, oh, California and Florida, that's what's the money's going to the Gulf Coast, hold it. Let me help you with something. That money went to 36 of the 50 American states and 2 U.S. territories. This list chronicles 111 separate events. 111. You ready for this? Here's the kicker. Of those 111 events, 94 of them have occurred since 2020. 94. And I didn't stutter. I said 36 American states. 36 of 50. 36. Most of the country. The oldest claim is 10 years old. 17 of these claims were before 2020. 94 since 2020. All I'm asking, what do you think that tells you? The funds will be used to support repair needs following natural disasters, extreme weather, or catastrophic events such as hurricanes, flooding, and mudslides. The repairs are as a result of these events will receive federal reimbursement funding under the Federal Highway Administration's Emergency Relief Program. This is one program. One program. Since December 2021, the Federal Highway Administration has distributed nearly $4.2 billion in emergency relief funding, which helps states repair and recover from climate events and natural disasters. This federal funding is critical to ensure our nation's roads, bridges, and tunnels remain safe and that people can safely get where they need to be. The program includes funding for continuous repairs for the 2022 Hurricanes Ian and Fiona, 2023 flooding and mudslides in Vermont, 2022 through 2024 severe atmospheric rivers in California, and other disasters across the country. Let me look at this because they break it down by date, amount given, and by state. Places that you wouldn't think of. For example, we're looking at 5 events in the state of Alabama, all since 2020. In fact, in the last 2 years, 2023 and 2024, totaling $11 million. Alabama. Alaska got $36 million. 27 million of that for one event, September 15, 2022, storms and flooding. Arizona, $3.5 million. Arkansas goes back, one event goes all the way back to 2015 in Arkansas. From 2015 to 2023, and we're looking at 7 events, $32 million. The lion's share of that was $12.6 million for an April 28, 2021 event, heavy rains, tornadoes, and flash flooding, Arkansas. Of this $802 and $2 million. No surprise, California got $183.3 million. Florida got $110 million. 98 of that just for Hurricane Ian in September of 2022. Places that you would not expect. Idaho, 2022, extreme runoff and flooding in north central and south northeastern Idaho, a little over $1 million. 2 events in Illinois due to flooding on the Mississippi. Iowa, our home state, last 2 years, 2023, 2 events, almost $1 million, $924,000 in Iowa. $2 million for 3 events in Kentucky, $1.4 million, 2 events in Maine. Michigan, $13 million for, 2 events. $4.9 million, Minnesota. Montana, who would think Montana? 2022, Montana, heavy rains, snow melt, and severe flooding in and around Yellowstone National Park, $10.7 million. And here's a place you would even think would be affected by all of this stuff, Nevada. 3 events, all last year, $19 million with just 1 event. In 2023, Tropical Storm Hillary, $10.5 million damage in Nevada. And unfortunately, North Carolina, and this doesn't include what just happened, and they already got $9 million for what's already happened in the last 3 to 4 years. This is what's going on. 36 states, $802 million. This is the cost of extreme weather, people, most of it in the last 4 years. That's my point. And this is just one federal agency, one administration, one agency within the federal government. Multiply that times USDA and others that have an impact, and you begin to see the cost. This brings us to the end of our visit. Be sure to join me here again next time. This has been the Tech Mobility Show.
The Tech Mobility Show is a copywritten production of Tech Mobility Productions, Incorporated. Any rebroadcast, retransmission, or any other use is prohibited without the written consent of Tech Mobility Productions, Incorporated.
For those of you that listen to podcasts, we have just the one for you. Hi, I'm Ken Chester. Tech Mobility Topics is a podcast where I upload topic-specific videos each week. Shorter than the full show, these bite-sized programs are just the thing, particularly if you're interested in a particular topic covered on the weekly radio show. From Apple Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many podcast platforms in between, we got you covered. Just enter Tech Mobility Topics in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts. Social media. It's the place to be, and we're no exception. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. Several times a week, I post to TikTok several of the topics that I cover on my weekly radio show. It's another way to keep up on mobility, technology, news, and information. I've built quite a library of short videos for your viewing pleasure, so be sure to watch, like, and subscribe. That's the Tech Mobility Show on TikTok. Check it out. To learn more about the Tech Mobility Show, start by visiting our website. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. The website is a treasure trove of information about me and the show, as well as where to find it on the radio across the country. Keep up with the happenings at the Tech Mobility Show by visiting techmobility.show. That's techmobility.show. You can also drop us a line at talk@techmobility.show. Do you listen to podcasts? Seems that most people do. Hi, I'm Ken Chester, host of the Tech Mobility Show. If you missed any of our weekly episodes on the radio, our podcast is a great way to listen. You can find the Tech Mobility Podcast just about anywhere you can enjoy podcasts. Be sure to follow us. From Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and many platforms in between, we are there. Just enter the Tech Mobility Podcast in the search bar wherever you listen to podcasts.